Hello and welcome to today's City Club Forum. My name is Ralph Delarada and I have the pleasure of serving as the president of the City Club of Cleveland this year. The City Club of Cleveland was established in October of 1912, and the City Club has served as one of the nation's premier public podiums for civic dialogue, covering the most pressing topics of our time. Our guest speakers, rich in experience and knowledge, are here to spur discussion and learning among the citizens of Cleveland, as well as to our national audience. Our speaker today is a nationally renowned figure who has spent 9 years leading one of the major religious institutions in our country. Reverend John H. Thomas is General Minister and President of the United Church of Christ, or the UCC. He was elected to this position to succeed Paul H. Sherry in 1999 at the General Synod in Providence, Rhode Island. The United Church of Christ was officially founded in 1957 by the Union of the Congregational Christian Churches in America and the Evangelical and Reformed Church. However, many UCC churches trace their roots to the era when the Pilgrims and Puritans first came to our country. Today's UCC firmly follows its early tenets, which include local church autonomy, covenantal church life, personal piety, and the inherent priesthood of all believers. The UCC has also been recognized for its historical and contemporary social justice commitments. The United States Congress currently includes 10 UCC members, 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats, including Senator Obama. Reverend Thomas serves as one of 5 members of the UCC's Collegium of Officers, which guides the national ministries of the church. His positions as General Minister and President charge him with the care and nurture of the church's spiritual life, as well as officially representing the church in ecumenical and interfaith relations. As a believer in the idea that God is sovereign over all, it should come as no surprise that Reverend Thomas endorses the mixture of religion and politics and often involves the UCC in political issues. He has called for pastors to sermonize about and encourage congregations to take action on contemporary topics such as the financial crisis, racial issues, global politics. Reverend Thomas was ordained in 1975. He served as Associate Minister for the First Congregational United Church of Christ in Cheshire, Connecticut, and as Minister for the First United Church of Christ in Easton, Pennsylvania. Reverend Thomas was then appointed as Assistant to the President of the UCC for Ecumenical Concerns, where he represented his church in theological dialogues and conciliar bodies. Here he was instrumental in developing the relationship between the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America and 3 Reformed churches, the Reformed Church in America, the Presbyterian Church, and the UCC. Reverend Thomas graduated from Gettysburg College in 1972 and Yale University Divinity School in 1975. He has additionally studied at the Ecumenical Institute in Basel, Switzerland, has written numerous articles on ecumenical issues, and received Honorary Doctor of Divinity degrees from Eden Theological Seminary, United Theological Seminary, and Yankton College. He is an avid sports fan and is married to Linda Thomas, who is a librarian in their hometown of Shaker Heights, Ohio. Nice to have you with us. He has 2 sons, Andrew and David. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for me to introduce this distinguished religious figure. Please join me in welcoming Reverend John Thomas to the City Club. So nice to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Ralph, and thank you to the City Club for this wonderful opportunity to be with you today, and also for the wonderful mission that you've carried out for so many years. Greetings from my colleagues who work in the national headquarters of the United Church of Christ. Some of you know we're headquartered just about a block away from here on Prospect Avenue. We've been here since 1991, and Cleveland's been a wonderful home for us. Today I want to reflect on piety and politics on the road to the White House. Long before God Bless America became the mandatory benediction for almost every politician's political speech, religion played a strong shaping role in American political life. George Washington, in his first inaugural, devoted at least a quarter of his rather short speech acknowledging the great author of every good and public good, and noting the invisible hand that conducts the affairs of men, which he believed represented a providential agency that advanced the United States to its character as an independent nation. A recent historian has studied the 1840 presidential campaign between the Whig candidate, William Henry Harrison, and the Democratic candidate, Martin Van Buren. And in that study, he discovered profound relationships between religious affiliation and a person's voting action in the campaign. Preferences clearly demarked by denominational affiliation and sometimes by theological preference within denominations. Now, that campaign in 1840 was also significantly impacted by a growing recession. Some things never seem to change. In fact, the Harrison supporters spoke of their opponent not as Martin Van Buren, but as Martin Van Ruin. But it was interesting to note in that study the shaping role of religion and piety in presidential politics and how they manifested themselves on Election Day. I want to begin with these historical references as a reminder that theological perspective, personal piety, denominational ethos have played important roles in American political life for a long time, sometimes in very deeply spiritual ways, sometimes more superficially, and sometimes revealing embarrassing bigotry and prejudice. We think about Woodrow Wilson and his expansive internationalist moral vision exemplified in his American crusade to make the world safe for democracy, or in his efforts to establish the League of Nations. We see him really as the heir to the 19th century evangelical social reformers who railed against slavery and alcohol. We can contrast that with Al Smith, first Catholic candidate for president, who endured vicious attacks from the media and the public because of his Catholic faith, and whose views were often contested by comparing them to various papal encyclicals. He is reported at one point to have replied to reporters, "Will someone tell me what the hell a papal encyclical really is?" Then there's, of course, Jimmy Carter, who spoke comfortably of his own evangelical piety and I think rather confounded many Americans, including liberal Protestants and secularists, with his image of a sophisticated, intellectually astute president who was also a regular Sunday school teacher in his little rural Baptist church in Plains, Georgia. We could contrast that with Howard Dean, who famously responded in his own attempt to kind of claim the mantle of sufficient piety to be elected president these days, responded to the question, "What's your favorite New Testament book?" by replying, "The Book of Job." Whoops. Where were Job's friends when he needed him? Ronald Reagan somehow managed to convey the impression of a deeply personal Christian piety without any potentially awkward connection to a particular denomination, local church, set of doctrines, or theological tradition, something I suspect Barack Obama wished he could have done last spring when his membership at Trinity Church and his pastor Jeremiah Wright almost scuttled his campaign. George W. Bush is in an odd and rather strange, but I think interesting way, is somewhat reminiscent of Woodrow Wilson, though you would never quite compare the two in normal conversation. And yet one senses in both presidents a highly personalized, one might even say at times pretentious piety that involves an almost mystical relationship to God or Jesus, a relationship that somehow has given them a privileged view into the divine, an uncontested moral vision for the world that is inaccessible to the rest of us mere mortals.